Hi, I'm Vlad with Glow Marble, and I'm going to show you a bunch of ways on how to color your artificially casted stones. This is part 2 of the series I'm making on casting for beginners, so if you haven't seen the first video, it's going to be down in the description. Go check that out after this one. The first method is using oxide pigments, and it's probably the most common one. How it works is you add the powder into the concrete while you're mixing it, and that changes the entire color of the concrete. So if you break or chip a piece off, it's going to stay that color, and it's not going to look like you painted over it. And also, depending on how much of it you add, you're going to get a different shade. One thing to keep in mind with this though is that the more of it you add, the weaker your concrete's going to become. The recommended doses on our website won't really change it that much, but anything over that I wouldn't really recommend. I'm going to be casting this mold with our 8084 pigment, which is a black pigment. The website says that I need 2 pounds per 94 pound bag of cement to get the color graphite, so that's what I'm going to be doing. In the last video I explained why I mix my own concrete with sand and cement so that it's easier to work with and I can get a consistent color between batches and castings. I also explained the super plasticizer, which I'm adding in right now. If you want to know about that, go ahead, check that video out. But with the oxide pigments, you're going to want to add it into the water. For the 10 pounds of cement that I'm going to be using, here's all the other materials. I'm mixing it into the water because I get a much better distribution of the color that way, and there's not going to be any lighter areas or darker areas in the concrete. And then we hit the sides of the bucket so that all that unmixed material gets incorporated into the whole mix. This method makes it look pretty nice, but it's still monotone, so the best way to fix that is to use shadows to give it some character. Have a light on the top shining down, and that's the way that it's going to look a lot better. And on top of that, I like using a little bit of sandpaper to scuff up the tops and peaks of it to give it a little bit more of a weathered look. Now the second option is using a stain. I like using water-based stains more than acid stains because they're more forgiving and you can fix all your mistakes. The product we sell is EcoStain, and it comes in a concentrated formula. The dilution rate on the website says 3 parts water to 1 part stain, but you could honestly play around with that. If you want it to be a little bit lighter, you can add more water. If you want it to be darker, you can add less. You could use a regular sprayer, but I like pump sprayers because with the regular sprayer you got to keep pulling the trigger, but with this one you hold it down and it shoots a continuous stream. So here's the same stone that I casted in the first video, and let's see what it looks like after I add some magnet stain on it. And now we just wait for it to dry. So now once the stain more or less dries, if you don't like it, for instance, I think this is a little bit too dark, you could take a rag, soak it in water, squeeze it out just until the point where it's barely dripping, and then start rubbing away the excess material that you don't want. And by the way this looks while it's wet is exactly how it's going to look when you put the sealer on it, which you're going to have to do regardless with this stain because weathering is going to take away this stain if you don't have a sealer on it. I also found out that the stain looks really good on white concrete, which is a little bit more expensive than the regular gray concrete, but I'll show you, it's definitely worth the money. I'm going to be using the super water-based acrylic sealer along with the foam roller because there's a lot of cracks and crevices and I need to get into some really deep points. The foam roller is basically perfect for that job. I also forgot to tell you that you can't seal it before 7 days because the concrete still has a lot of moisture inside of it, and you don't want that moisture getting trapped underneath the sealer because that's going to create bubbles that are forming through the sealer. It's not going to look nice. And obviously wait for the concrete to be completely dry from the stain and any washing that you did to it. And now the third option is a little bit more time consuming than the rest of them, but it still gives you a pretty good look anyways. So you take your oxide pigments. I have 61078 and 641, and just basically paint them on to each individual stone that you want to be colored that way. First, give it a good healthy dose of release. It's usually not good to put too much, but for this method, we need a little bit more than usual. Then just take a brush and start painting. And now here's the last option, which is basically tying all three of them together, and I'm going to be using a stain on top of this. I'm using espresso, and let's see what that looks like. So I actually like that one a little bit more than the rest of these, and I'm going to do that for all of them just for the sake of the thumbnail. So you've made it to the end of my video, but now I want to ask you for a quick favor. See, the YouTube algorithm gets tricked into showing my video to a lot more people if a lot of people comment on it. So criticize me, praise me, or just ask a question. As long as you leave a comment, I'm going to appreciate it a lot. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.